Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. The Foreign Press Association is 100 years. Well, 100 years and a week today. Last week we celebrated our centennial in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and we will continue today with our celebration. We have a very interesting program. First of all, we're going to start with a debate on the future of foreign reporting. We have with us three BPV members, three foreign correspondents who report on the Netherlands in their own language, and three Dutch colleagues who have been abroad reporting to the Netherlands. So the debate will go on until 5 o'clock. In around 25-30 minutes, His Majesty, the King of the Netherlands, will join us. He will also follow the debate until 5 o'clock. And at that point, I will have to ask our guests to please go outside. We have drinks, we have bites, talk to each other, get to know each other. We just need a few minutes for the BPV members, colleagues, the ones who received an email with a confirmation and a table assigned for small group meetings. Please move to your assigned table and get ready. You have 10 minutes, and during those 10 minutes, Claudia will be showing His Majesty a very beautiful exhibition she prepared for our 100th anniversary. Once those meetings are done, we will join everyone else outside. And I will stop here. I will leave the next hour in the very capable hands of Marcia Luyten. She will lead the debate. Marcia is a journalist, a writer, and among the many interesting things she has done, she hosted the interview and discussion program Buitenhof for many years. So, Marcia, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Iman. Thank you. And before we start, I first want to pass my warm congratulations to you as president of the BPV. And as you said, there was a beautiful celebration last week in the Rijksmuseum, where Iman gave a great account of the history of the BPV, telling about also illustrious members of the association, such as Winston Churchill, really. Then there was also the Rijksmuseum director, Pauw De Wit, who explained how important foreign correspondents in the Netherlands are also for this national pride, this beautiful museum. And Annette Bierschel, she's the secretary of the BPV. She revealed her talent as a stand-up comedian, telling about her life as a foreign correspondent in this curious kikkerlandje, where we, the Franks, don't worry at all about rising sea levels while living below sea level. Well, anyway, last week we discussed the history of the BPV, and what we do today is we want to look forward to the future of this beautiful profession of foreign correspondent. But of course, we will also talk about that profession and talk about what it means, why it's so beautiful, and why it's not an easy one. We will do so in two shifts. We will start with the foreign correspondents in the Netherlands, and then the second part will be with Dutch correspondents abroad. We were going to start with our foreign correspondents in this country. I'm impressed. They all, had to endure this ordeal of learning our terrible language with this hard G. And Annette Bierschel, she explained that can only be done with a stack of fishermen's friends. Well, let me introduce your panel, Molly Quell. She's an American correspondent based in The Hague. Molly reported many years for CNS, and since August, she's reporting for Associated Press. She covered the international courts in The Hague and reported on the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Welcome, Molly. Then Isabel Ferrer. She's a correspondent for El País, now reporting from the Netherlands, but previously from the United Kingdom. She worked for various radio stations in Spain after obtaining, that I find interesting for a journalist, obtaining a master's degree in information sciences. which is great. And then thirdly, Saskia van Rooijen worked nearly 30 years for a Polish radio, started as a reporter on Polish foreign policy, but has been a correspondent in Israel, the UK, and currently the Netherlands. Well, ladies, welcome. Being a good correspondent demands a lot of things, I know. You have to be extremely well informed, you have to be well connected, you have to be inquisitive, culturally sensitive, you have to be an investigator and at the same time a performer or a good writer. I was wondering what skill is essential that you can only learn on the job, in the field? Molly?
I mean, probably sort of having to deal with like cultural differences, right? That you are in a place that is not your own culture. Things are done differently here. Some of those things may be learning a god-awful language, but some of them are other things of sort of like, the Dutch are quite punctual. I've worked in a lot of countries where punctuality is a different story, and so you have to learn, that if you have an appointment with a minister, you have to be there when the church bells chime. And I think that that's kind of the most difficult thing of sort of getting this cultural understanding.
The same for you, Isabel?
Well, I think that all the skills that we have to have as foreign correspondents are the skills of a journalist. Nothing else, nothing more. The only thing that we can do maybe is, although these cultural differences can be sometimes difficult, the only thing that we can do is to add some value to the situation, have an analysis, another context, another view, but we have to do the same as our colleagues.
And what is this special added value a correspondent can contribute?
Well, let me put you an example. I am the correspondent for El País. El País, of course, Spanish is a big language, but El País has delegations in Washington, in Brazil. There's a Portuguese edition as well, in Mexico City, in Colombia, in Peru, in Argentina. So some of these countries in Latin America are not having really a free press. So what you can do is to have independent value, independent way of reporting, analysis, which is really well regarded because it's really this is necessary as well.
Very important, yes. Yes, and is there another skill that you could add that as a correspondent you will only learn while doing it?
Definitely flexibility.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you have to be really flexible because as I work for the public radio. This is an enormous corporation because we have 5 channels. We have a news agency, so I have to produce information for all these channels. And one of them are information channels, another one culture, another one cover only social issues. So I have to be really flexible. I have to learn every day. I have to look for the subjects which I want to cover. I have to decide which one is worth to do it because Poles don't want to listen only about the politics, only about the courts, only about the Tweede Kamer. They want to see a society. They want to see what the Netherlanders are doing, and that's why it demands from me a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, well, knowing and telling how the Netherlands is doing. Speaking of which, we as Dutch, we're always curious to learn from the fresh eyes the correspondent brings in, because you see different things because you've got these fresh eyes. What would be a thing that you have discovered to be something very typical for the Netherlands that we, the Dutch, usually don't see or don't want to acknowledge?
Overleggen.
Overleggen.
And from my point of view, it's something special because we are not. Now we can see it during negotiations to creation of the
government.
Of the government. Mm-hmm. We are not doing this in Poland. We are just sitting around the table. The main politicians, leaders, they discuss something. They decide, okay, we are going together rule a country. Here, it takes a long time, and I must say that this is something very special and very difficult to explain to Polish audience why it's worth to do it, because we can see results and yeah.
But do you think it's ridiculous we take so long, or do you say, well, in the end, it does work better? I mean, forget about the last government, but in general.
I think it's at the beginning I thought it's ridiculous. But now, after a couple of years of living here, I think it's really, really, really worth to do it. Because you can stop certain politicians from doing bad things for your country. What we had for the 8 years we had a
The peace
one-party
government.
peace party, and because there were no power to stop them, there were no skills to negotiate, to talk. There's no this kind of option. So Poland, it is where it is.
You see, that's interesting. So you see it as also as a cultural difference that in Poland it was so difficult to stop peace from what it was doing.
Yeah, but we have a different temperament. We are much more. Yeah, we are. We are.
In
much,
what way?
You are much calmer.
Oh,
You really willing to listen to each other. We are
Okay.
much more bubbly. Yeah.
Okay,
This is
more
about the-
more overheated.
Yeah.
Often. Okay, that's an interesting thing. Thank you, Molly. What do you think about the Dutch that we don't know ourselves?
I think the thing that has surprised me sort of the most is kind of how conservative Dutch society actually is. I mean,
In what way?
the Netherlands has this reputation for being, very sort of tolerant and liberal, and that is true. But they mean tolerant in the strictest definition, right? We sort of tolerate this, but we're not kind of embracing it in a lot of ways. And I think, I mean, I live on a small street, and everybody sits down and eats dinner at 6:30. You sort of see the lights on, and everybody kind of goes to bed at the same time and sort of gets up at the same time. There is this kind of like conservative sort of mentality here.
In a tight schedule.
Yeah, in a tight schedule, but also that things are sort of done in a normal way. You have to do normal. That is part of the thing, and there is this kind of existing social pressure for people to kind of behave in the same way. There's this sort of conservatism in that sense. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Isabel, is there something that you found really remarkable?
Well, I have to contain myself because if you're bubbly, imagine yourself in Europe. But the thing is, this is true. There's a sort of shocking realization in the Netherlands can be very open, international, commercially skillful, and at the same time very provincial in some things. And
like what?
This is what Molly says. I mean, or the position of women in society, how mothers and women present themselves or behave in a way. Well, the market is the market, or the labor market, and if you try to explain the half party or the halfway journey, working journey for women in Spain, is really shocking, because either you have a job or you don't, but you don't mingle with the hours, which is different, of course. But at the same time, I encounter, and maybe this is not so nice to say, but I encounter some sort of curiosity towards us as foreign correspondents, but curiosity is not the same as interest. And then you have to cross this barrier and explain, of course it's interesting, of course it's internationally worthy what you are doing, and I'd like to report about that. But then they are curious, but interesting.
Okay, that's a good point. And I'm also curious about the other side of this mirror. For example, when I was a correspondent in Africa, I was shocked to find out how inhospitable we, the Dutch, are. Is there something, Kasia, that you discovered about your own country
About my own country.
while living abroad?
Yeah, I discovered that we are not so conservative as I thought, because Dutchies are also conservative. We are considered in Europe as a religious country, but I see that Holland is not less religious, because I am exposed for different kind of religious all the time, 24 hours, much more than in Holland.
That's interesting, because how do you find the Netherlands religious? Because, in how do you say that? We always are like one of the the most secularized countries in the world.
Yes.
So maybe we are religious in a different way. That's interesting.
Yeah, but because we definitely you have, for example, religious schools. There is ongoing in the society discussion about the religious, about different religions. I talk about the Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, all these tensions. That's why I sometimes I have a feeling that I'm much more exposed for religion in Holland than in Poland. In Poland we have a problem because the church is very well connected with the politicians. Here it doesn't officially it doesn't exist.
No.
But still government is paying for the religious schools. For me it's the question, is it a really secular country, or maybe you understand secularity a different way than I understand.
Okay, interesting. And for you, Isabel, is there something
I was thinking of the SGP the SGP party. I mean, this is a secular
Article,
this is
23, right? Like that's
Banning
that's
women.
exactly
religion
right.
to the point. I mean, and you have is at the
So
parliament.
you agree with Katja on this?
I remember when I came here many years ago, I saw Ruud Lubbers was the prime minister at that moment, and I saw a photograph in one of the newspapers. There was a cross, a huge cross, behind him, and then there he was, standing, telling something. And the caption of the photograph was, "The Catholic Prime Minister Ruud Lubbers," with a big cross behind. And I thought, what's this? This is the secular country?
Yeah. But in a reaction to that, I think because not everybody is Catholic, like for example in Poland, we just denominate to make a distinction. Maybe that's...
But do you have to make a distinction? Is it important that the prime minister is whatever it is?
I don't think it isn't, but and maybe that's the explanation. But is there something else that you discovered that about Spain that surprised you?
Yes, that we talk a lot about politics and food, but we don't know how to agree and how to make an agreement. So we are all the time talking about politics and this and that, but at the end of the day, you know how to do it. How to make an agreement, how to try, even if it takes months. But in the end, there is something there for everybody.
We knew, huh? It's, I mean,
It's
the
bouldering.
future's going to tell if we know how to polder still, but...
But there is the will to do it.
Yeah, but I understand that in Spain you don't see that at all. So
No, there are two big parties and many difficulties.
yeah. And Molly, about the US?
I mean, I think I got my shock at the U.S. being different out long before I moved to the Netherlands because I've lived in a number of places. I think the thing I always find fascinating here is how obsessed the Dutch media is with American politics. If you ask Dutch people, they can tell you a lot about what's going on in Washington and often cannot tell you who the Prime Minister of Belgium is. And that I find quite fascinating.
But that's still about the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So what was the remarkable thing about America?
Yeah, I mean, I had lived so long outside the U.S. I'm not sure I could tell you that. Like,
Yeah.
that's not I had a lot of experiences
Yeah.
before I moved here, so it wasn't news to me that the U.S. was different by the time I kind of crash landed at Schiphol.
Yeah. And according to you, why is the correspondent and then this profession, why is it something indispensable in this whole news landscape?
I mean, you know, I'm explaining the news here to an audience that has no idea how Dutch politics works, right? I mean, we've been discussing this, like it takes a long time, you have to form this government stuff. I mean, this is not how the political system works in the US, it's very different. And so you really have to have an understanding both of how the system works here, but also of what your reader is going to understand, what knowledge they're kind of bringing to the table. I report a lot on international justice. I mean, the U.S. Mostly does not participate in this space, and so every time I'm writing stories, I have to think about what is the average American reader going to know going into this, which is very little, and that would be different if I was explaining this. I think, to a Dutch audience, I don't have to explain to a Dutch audience where The Hague is. I have to explain to an American audience, even where the city is.
Yeah. So, but you've been doing a lot of reporting on the international courts. What other topic is one of the major things you write or report about?
I mean, euthanasia and cannabis, right? That's the only thing that anybody cares about from here. No, I mean, Dutch politics, right? Especially recently, has been way more interesting, I think, with the sort of rise and the prevalence of wilders. And, there's been a lot of international interest in that, because it's sort of seen as part of the shift to the far right and, what does that mean? And so that has also, been a big topic. And I think kind of, general kind of cultural news. I mean, people, I think, are quite curious how things work in other places, and so you get the opportunity a lot to sort of explain, how the voting works, right? That we did all these stories about cool polling locations because that's not how voting works in America.
About what polling location?
About interesting polling locations, right? The Dutch love to put a polling location in every doghouse in this country, right. And so then you get this opportunity, right, to sort of talk about why that is and how that contributes to participation and democracy.
Okay, good. And Isabel, do you feel this? You say the correspondent is just like a journalist working abroad, but is this profession of the correspondent, is it something indispensable, or can we also do without?
Journalism is indispensable.
Yes. Welcome. Well, we'll hand over to Iman. No, that's fine. We're glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
Well,
I mean, in my experience, Dutch people are often early. It's sometimes can be quite frustrating.
Oh, that's what we were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I've integrated.
Thank you very much. I just want to welcome His Majesty, the King of the Netherlands. Thank you for taking the time to join us here today to listen to what we as correspondents have to say. You will probably hear some nice stories about this beautiful job that we care so much about, but also some complaints, some struggles we have to face. So please enjoy the debate. I would also like to welcome the mayor of this city of The Hague, Jan van Zanen. Thank you very much. And the King's Deputy Commissioner in South Holland, Meindert Stolk, who is also here with us. Thank you.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Iman. So we continue. Yeah, to give you like a brief recap, we were talking about what these foreign correspondents, when coming to the Netherlands, thought that was very typical, that they didn't know about from their own country. So punctuality definitely was one. And another interesting thing is that Kasia from Poland said, well, you think you're so liberal and so progressive, but actually this country is more culturally more conservative than I ever thought. So there were some interesting things. And now we were talking about, well, this profession of being a foreign correspondent and whether or why it is indispensable. So you were saying journalism is indispensable, and
I think, yes, I consider myself a journalist reporting abroad. And if we all have to have an open eye, our eyes should be doubly open. But that's it. I mean, we have to try to look through in a different way, because this is inevitable. I'm not Dutch, so I approach my work in a different way. But news, current news, situations are the same for everybody. So what is indispensable is the job that we do, not us.
But if you then look at journalism, Isabel, then you have many journalists are, say, desk journalists. Huh? They never leave their screens. Whereas being a correspondent, you cannot but go out in the world, into the field. Does that demand different capabilities?
But give the opportunity to those people that are in the desk. I'm sure they will be up to the task. It's just how you distribute jobs.
So you say it doesn't matter. Anybody is capable of doing all these different...
You have to try to learn languages. You have to be willing to go abroad, because maybe not everybody wants to do that. You know that you will suffer a bit more. Not here, probably. This is the first world. But anyway. But
you suffer from the language, huh?
Well,
it's a fisherman's French language.
The weather.
Because it hurts in your throat.
Well, the Dutch, the language, the weather, and the food. But nevertheless.
The food is bad?
Well, if you come from Spain,
okay.
you do your best to acknowledge, but anyway.
It was much worse 30 years ago.
Yeah.
We internationalized already. Kasia, to you, this profession of the foreign correspondent, is it something indispensable, or do you say, like Isabel, any journalist can do the job?
I consider this as a mission, because when I started my work, I was very young. I was 16, and it was the moment when the communists end. So, and I always knew that I want to be a journalist. So my mission always was to talk about the democracy, to get Poland to the point that we join West, because there were no other option. You are or with West or with East. So that's why I consider till now as a mission. And the problem is that we can see what's going on the East, in East Europe, also in Poland, in Romania, in Hungary. And it's very worrying, because these are very young democracies.
Yeah.
And so you let us come in to this West Club, and your job also is not finished. You have to show us how to keep going, how to maintain democracy, which we try to still develop. And I feel like I have to tell my people in Poles what's going on here, how we can do it better, not undermine democracy as a system which is not valuable or can be exchanged by another system. Just show how we can do it better together.
And what is it that you pick up from here and say that we could learn from a democracy like that in the Netherlands?
Because you are one of the fathers of mothers of the European Union, so you know the best how to do it. and that's why we learn from you. We learn from you with our all justice system, education. We NGOs who are working in Poland till now. They're coming from here. No, we didn't discover this method. You came to teach us, and we didn't stop learning yet.
Yeah.
What we can see at this moment, what's going on in the East.
Yeah. So this profession, we're going to talk about AI a bit later, but still we know there's a lot changing these days in journalism. Anyone can be a broadcaster, and from any area in the world, you can just, aggregate information, process it, and analyze it, and make a piece out of it. Molly, do you feel that there's like a future for the foreign correspondent?
Yeah, certainly, because in order to aggregate that information, it has to come from somewhere. And when an AI model can sit through unending hours at the ICJ or the ICC, then maybe I'll have to worry about my job. But until then, I don't lose any sleep over that.
True.
And is it changing your job? Because you say, in order to aggregate the information, you need a correspondent. But if you compare that to, maybe 100 years ago or 50 years ago, what the correspondent had to aggregate was so much more than, because today there's so much already available.
Yeah, I think it's yet to be seen exactly like how AI is going to change things. And I certainly think for some of my colleagues, and especially who kind of work on the technical side of things, that it has. But in terms of my day-to-day job, I mean, not particularly, right? The job is that you sort of, somebody says it's raining and somebody says it's not, and you stick your head out the window and you find out one way or the other. And then you write it up and you file it. Like it hasn't really changed that much for me.
And that does need presence on the ground.
You have to be able to look out the window.
I love this very clear-cut example about the rain. Isabel, to you, is there a future for this profession, the foreign correspondent?
Of course.
How will it change?
There we are. How will it change? I don't know, but we are inside the profession. We are the profession, so we have to move on with the changes. But the artificial intelligence, you just have to focus yourself, and if your job is to use words and to report things, then you don't need artificial intelligence. Of course, it's useful for many things, but no, you really have to go to the place and stay there and open your eyes, as we said, and
yeah, but the
ask
question
everybody.
is not if you need artificial intelligence. The question maybe is, will the artificial intelligence, will it replace you?
Replace people.
Yeah. Will it
Not only us.
No, but
No.
do you?
But as Molly said, I mean, you go to the ICC and you stay there 5 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, you are the machine. And
I wish the algorithm could do that, because that's kind of boring work sometimes.
Okay, clear. Kasia, finally.
I work for radio. So I cannot make a better job than I do.
Yeah.
Radio is safe.
Radio is safe, certain way. But I still think that we are writing, we are human. We use a certain language. We use also our emotions, our knowledge. Every time when I'm write something, and then I have to also record myself and prepare a story. It's from beginning to the end is my job, and AI cannot make it. Simple as that. I don't see it at this moment.
Amen. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. May I have a warm applause for Molly Quell, Isabel Ferrer, and Katarzyna van Rooijen. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Then we continue with your Dutch colleagues. Olaf Tempelman, he studied political science. Yeah, you can come to the fore. He studied political science, journalism, and the Romanian language. I know him from a long time ago, because we started at the Volkskrant together. I know him, he's the intellectual type of writer.
Oh.
And between 1999 and 2008, he was the Volkskrant correspondent for Southeastern Europe, based in Bucharest. Now he's based in the Netherlands still. Thank you, writing for the Volkskrant. Welcome, Olaf. Saskia Dekkers, at the other side, she was for years based in Paris. She was our Dutch Parisienne, reporting for the NOS. Now she works for Nieuwsuur as a European correspondent, traveling across the continent, always together with cameraman Pieter Nijdeken, doing in-depth reporting on the shifting global order and Europe's evolving geopolitical landscape. They get to places, and that is interesting. If you start noticing it, you'll see it. They get to places before or after other correspondents get there, places that other correspondents overlook or will find interesting later. Thank you for being here, Saskia. Tim De Wit in the middle worked as a correspondent for the NOS in South Africa, Germany and the UK. He also wrote for the newspapers Trouw and Parool. He returned in 2021 and started a much listened to podcast on foreign policy, Europa Draait Door. You've been guest there for many times, I know. He presented the radio show Bureau Buitenland, and 2 months ago he started as one of the anchors of the daily talk show Pauw De Wit. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you.
Yes. I guess it is fair to say that in this room we all agree you have one of the most interesting jobs in the world, and then allowing His Majesty to disagree. What is it about being a correspondent? What is it about being a correspondent that is so special about it? What is this feeling about being a correspondent that is so hard to explain to outsiders, Saskia?
I think it's loving adventure. It's not knowing in the beginning of the day where you are at the end of the day. Maybe that's for the king as well, the same. I don't know. But as well that you go in depth. You are the eyes and the ears and you go everywhere. You don't know what's going to be, but every time you go deep into a story, you connect with people. And my father always took us in holidays to foreign countries. And he told us it's not a vacation, it's traveling. We are connecting with the people. We are going deeper into the culture. And now I have a job where I can do that. So it's kind of happiness, continuous happiness.
Yeah. I can just completely recognize that you do that in your work, really. Tim, what for you is that special feeling, or did Saskia take away
I agree with almost everything she said. And one thing to add to that is that what I really enjoyed about being a correspondent is as soon as you live in a country, you are exactly as you say, the eyes and the ears for your own audience, which is in my case the Dutch audience who watched like the NOS journaal. And what I really liked about it is that you can set your own agenda. Because if you are a journalist at a news desk in the Netherlands, you get assignments on certain topics, you go to research certain stories. But as a correspondent, I could do cultural stories on sports, politics, big stories that happened, for example, in the UK when it comes to obesity, stories that are, I think, important to tell to people in the Netherlands. And being kind of in control of your own agenda is what I really enjoyed about being a correspondent.
You lost that now, huh?
Definitely, yeah. Well, I still have some influence about what I do, thankfully, but it's definitely different than compared to my time in the UK. Yeah.
And Olaf, what would you describe as like the most significant thing that is so good, this feeling of being a correspondent?
You are the gateway to a different country, different world, different culture, or a bridge.
A bridge, because you've got to
bridge,
translate
even
things.
you bring that world to that other world. And the second thing is, I think Ben Knape, some people might know him, he once said, so a correspondent is like a mini orchestra. So you do all the things at the same time. So one day you play the violin, the other thing you play the contrabass, and the percussion, the trumpet. So you can express yourself in many different ways. So it's a real privilege, and I think it's a real privilege to get paid for things. So asking questions, learning all the time. Yeah, that's my thing. Yeah,
just like Saskia said.
Asking questions, learning. Yeah. We have
like,
this. There is
you have this privilege of being
paid. This is a privilege, and when you meet other correspondents, it's immediately a strong link. And the other thing is, so if you have been a correspondent, you always remain a former correspondent. So I see you as a former correspondent, and him as a former correspondent, and her as a working correspondent. Yeah.
I think we have also something crazy a bit.
Yeah.
Because
it is.
You can leave your country and you're not afraid, and you don't. It doesn't matter where you go, and that gives a kind of sense to everybody who is a foreign correspondent that you can really live in another country, not just travel there or go on vacation.
Being in this kikkerlandje, to speak with
it makes the world big.
Yeah.
So it enriches your life enormously. Yeah. So you get from big in your own village to small in the big world.
And forever you have this exotic value, being a man in Romania.
Yeah. The only one.
But then the other side. So this was the glory of the profession. What is the hard thing? The thing you hated most?
What I found the most difficult thing is that you have to be on the topic you're working on basically 24 hours a day. And especially during my time in the UK, when I was also surprised that everybody in the Netherlands was so focused on the Brexit story. I mean, no one really talks about it anymore, but it was like front page news day in, day out for years. And for my personal life, that meant that I woke up with knowing exactly what Saskia said. I didn't know how busy I would be, but the one thing I knew is it will be busy, it will be about Brexit, and I have to focus on even the tiniest details.
And you say you have to be 24 hours a day on the story. You're also 24 hours a day available, because, I mean, exactly, I remember... Yeah. I would hear you at 6:30 in the morning on the morning show, and then I would be presenting at late night, and you would be there at 11 as well.
Yeah, and it was even like this strange. I could be at a dinner with someone, for example, even on a date. I remember with someone. She invited me for dinner, and I got a phone call that I remember. It's actually a royal story, by the way.
You had to leave.
I had a phone. Yeah. And Prince, it's about 6-7 years, and there was Prince Andrew was in the news at the time a lot. And I got a phone call that Prince Andrew was he got his first titles removed after he did this interview with Newsnight. It was, I mean, we all know that interview, and it had that was so big that I got a phone call from Hilversum, as that's how it goes, and said, you have to be live in Nieuwsuur to explain what happened to Prince Andrew. And I was that's
I'm on a date.
Exactly. But that doesn't count, obviously. So I had to leave, and you just go back to, in my case, to a studio. You have to, take your coat, go, and that's how life can be as a correspondent. Work is basically always your number one priority, and that's part of the adventure. But that there are downsides.
Yeah. What is the dark side of your adventure, Saskia? Because I know these stories of you late at night in hotel rooms editing 5 minutes before the show is on.
Now, but I have an example like Tim, that we had a filming in Brussels with an artist, and it was very late, 2 o'clock at night. We drove back, and then we got a crash with a big animal, a wild bear, and our car turned upside down. So we had the car was total loss. It was really, and the next morning, 7 o'clock, you have to be live, and then you don't say, oh, sorry, I can't.
This wild bear.
Yeah, this wild bear, our car is total loss. No, that's not the case. But another thing what I noticed is that to get a touch of what's happening in many countries, like Poland and Hungary the latest months, years even, to be able to talk to people who experience fear, what's happening to them, under the PiS government, the former PiS government, under the Fidesz government in Hungary, what happened really to them, journalists, teachers, judges, lawyers, and to let them talk with us, that they could trust me, and that little by little we noticed what happened to democracy in these countries. And even myself, I was a subject of smear campaigns by the Hungarian government. They tried really to make my life really complicated by getting on social media messages about me which were not true. It was good at one way, because I noticed how you can get afraid as well for things and what happens to you.
But knowing that makes it also complicated. I can imagine that you're eager to do a story, but you know that the people who talk to you in these countries they're exposing themselves to a certain risk.
Yeah, you have to be very careful. And I always ask people, are you aware that you are going to be not just watched in the Netherlands, but sometimes our stories are sold to other countries like Belgium or even France? You can be exposed. Is it for you possible to talk? And people are so courageous. Some people just they got out of their job. I talked with a Hungarian judge, and she quit her job just to be able to talk to the press, to tell the stories of what was happening with justice in Hungary. And I think then I'm even happy that I can give her a podium and give her time to explain. But I
think that has changed over the last like 20, 25 years as well, because 25 years ago we didn't have like social media. There wasn't hardly any access to internet all over the world. And talking to a foreign correspondent back then was much easier, I think, for sources that knew that their stories were very sensitive.
Everything is immediately exposed.
And now it's very easy to share stories on social media. So even in their own countries, people are much more easily exposed.
Olaf?
Yeah, well, about the downside.
No, but what do you hate about it?
What I hated about it was so in the beginning of this century when Milosevic was still in power in Serbia, so every week an important person was killed there. And I remember having a lot of... I refused first to have a smartphone or a mobile phone, but they forced me to have one. And in the first day I had it operational, I was eating in a restaurant and they called me, so that person is killed, so you write a profile. So I remember being, so having to leave restaurants to write necrologies of people nobody remembers nowadays. That's the one thing. The second thing I disliked, or I came to dislike in the course of the years, was that it is a job without memory. So we always say you are as good as your last report or your last story. So you get letters, why don't you write about this? Why don't you write about that? So, and you say, I've written that, but 2-3 years ago. So if you continue too long, you become in a way a copy of yourself. And you have to repeat the same story with different kinds of words. So
it's important not to stay too long in one.
This is an interesting debate. It's also in diplomacy. They never let people stay more than 4 or 5 years. If you stay too long, so you have 3 phases in the correspondency. So first you are extremely curious, but you do not have the knowledge. Then the second stage is you have the knowledge, and you are still very curious and you have the fire going on. And the third stage is you have the knowledge, but you don't have the fire anymore. So, and that is the phase when the repetition starts in, and that is one. Oh, okay, here we go again. And actually,
and then you have to go.
Yeah, it's time to go. Yeah, and but that is hard to distinguish when that moment
to
comes
see for yourself. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I wanted to talk with you also about the future, of course, of this profession. The BPV has now become 100 years, a century. It's incredible. The profession is even older because the foreign correspondent started to work when the telegraph came into work. So early 19th century, the first newspaper sent their correspondence to London and Paris. But since then we have these eyes and ears abroad. But today, of course, we witness another major technological revolution that is affecting, of course, the work of a correspondent. I'm talking of social media and AI. So anybody can send information to the rest of the whole worldwide web. And at the same time, on the other side, gathering, collecting, synthesizing, and reporting a lot of information. You can do from a distance as well. So that has become super easy. Is there still life for the correspondent?
Yeah, I think there is more life than ever for the correspondent. I think we are anti-fake news and anti-cliche. I think what's happening at the moment, and I saw it already last years, is sometimes I'm covering an event, and then you see the agencies like Reuters, AP, ABU, they are there, they are filming. And what they send to the broadcasters is the most extreme images, because they sell. And these broadcasters are using, again, from these images, from the 3 agencies, again, the most extreme images. So at the end, you get a completely different... I sometimes think, I wasn't at this event, it looks completely different. Suddenly, it's just like there was just violence or just
But this is an important point, Saskia, because what you're saying is that the correspondents of the main news agencies, because they have to sell their stories so often, tend to report like the extreme side, which is not giving like a good image, a good perspective on what was happening.
Yeah, and I think if, as a foreign correspondent, you could try at least. What I try to do is to go at the moments before and after the breaking news, at least to give a more nuance, to give another picture, and to talk with the people who are concerned. You get a completely different story. If you, for example, look at the banlieue riots, you see then at the moment just fire, people throwing stones. Yeah. I went there like 1 week after. I was talking with the police and with the youngsters there, and I got a completely different story of what was really happening, what was behind all these riots. So it's as well a way of maybe against polarization. If you try to, to look at the truth and talk with people.
But these are both sides of foreign news.
Yeah, I think there will always be an audience for people who know a little bit more. So, for instance, I was a correspondent in Romania, but so I don't know anything about India. But if I read a piece about India, I can distinguish a person who just repeats the press agencies, or use the AI, or a person who knows a little bit more. And I think you cannot take that away. So people have an intuition. So that person can reveal something about that country that I didn't know. And I think that is the last thing that can be replaced by ChatGPT.
Okay.
I think the added value of a correspondent is not only to tell their audience what is happening, but why is it happening? And that's exactly as Saskia explained. And normally, as a correspondent, you also have the time to dive deeper in the story than only covering it on a day when it's breaking. And for local reporters, they usually have to follow the breaking news story first and then go to another breaking news story. But for example, when something big happens, I had it in London as well with terror attacks, for example, then I have the time as well to go to the area where the perpetrators come from, for example, talk to people there, get a better grip of what is actually happening. Why are people from this area changing their minds in that way, radicalizing in that way, that they come to these horrible events? And I think that's why a foreign correspondent is so important, because they have the time, or at least I hope they have in the future as well, to dive deeper in stories, to come to the answer to a question: why is this happening?
For correspondents, it's important because knowledge about foreign worlds is important.
Okay, but we agree on that. We agree on that. Indispensable. But then we see, of course, newspapers and other news agencies, they have to cut their budgets.
And that's a problem.
And advertisements, for example, go more and more to social media. The big advertisers don't put their ads in newspapers anymore, maybe on the online newspaper, but more and more on social media. So news agencies have to economize. So maybe we can agree that it's indispensable, but for economic reasons, it might be less and less and less correspondence.
And there's another thing, is a format-driven journalism, which has been plaguing. In the old day, a correspondent needs a lot of free space to do some free-form writing to get into the depth of a country. Nowadays, when you look at newspapers or news sites, you have all different types of pieces, and you know exactly what you get with the subjects. So there is less room for free-form journalism, which is a threat for the foreign correspondents. So except from the budget cuts, but that doesn't mean that it is not important what we are doing.
But is this something that can or should be done in order to preserve the foreign correspondent?
Oh, that's very difficult. I mean, if you look at the last, let's say, 20 years, I work for the public broadcaster, of course, where you've seen that, and Saskia worked there as well, like 20 years ago, there were more correspondents, they had more work safety, more people with longer term contracts. I also think you've seen it changing from that perspective, that more younger people now decide to become a correspondent because they don't have like a mortgage or a family, because it's very hard to get a long-term contract when you decide to move to another country. So you have to work as a freelancer, and you have to hope and pray that you will earn enough basically to make a living out of it. That's
which has become more and more difficult as tariffs have gone down.
It's more difficult. They said so. I was 29, 28 when I became a correspondent, and everything that was important to me fitted in one backpack, and that has become the model nowadays. So I was the youngest correspondent then. Now the average age of the Volkskrant correspondent might be around 30. So because these people are curious and they're fascinated. fascinated and they don't care so much about the money, and they have an audience. But of course, it is they profit from the fact that you have these people in their late 20s being so crazy to live on a couple of euros a month and to do the so anyway, it's not a job if you for big earnings, but in the old days, so 30 years ago, you had many middle-aged people with families, with children at international schools, and it was all covered, and that has completely disappeared.
Yeah, you need to feel stable as a journalist, and because I think that the demands of your office is sometimes cliche. Like I talked with a correspondent in Italy, and it's always about mafia, the Pope, and Meloni, nothing else. And if you stay in this demand and you answer it, especially when you're young and you don't dare to say no, and not to come with your own stories and say, no, this is not the case. I mean, I see it completely different. I think that's a huge value. And I agree with Tim. You see that people get very young and it's cheaper, it's easier, but they have to work so hard to have a salary. You know, sometimes they have like 5 different jobs just to have a normal salary. And then when there's breaking news, you have to give to every 5
all these channels.
You have to give your news story.
And you also have to be very all-round nowadays. So if you're only a writing correspondent, it's even much...
not enough.
No, it's not enough. So you have to do writing, radio, television, basically to make enough money at the post you're living.
You can have as many types of foreign correspondents as you have cooks. So what I did was really slow cooking. So I could never have been. But I had colleagues who were really lived what they described. They had all these
who made fast food
who made fast food, and they were really like making work there 16 hours and all the time repeating the same things. So I think you need a correspondent to get into the depths, not to repeat what is.
So how do we convince, like the directors, the CEOs of these big media companies that correspondents are indispensable?
It's a good question. And most of the time when you say it's a good question, then you don't know really the answer. No, I think, you have to convince maybe with good stories. Like, maybe when I talk for myself, my stories are still quite expensive for NewsHour. It's very good that they offer me this job. But they see as well that people like it. So they think, oh, wow, I didn't know this. And that there's a kind of audience for it, for have authentic stories, which are not a repetition from what you see already the whole day, the same images the whole day. So maybe it's just by...
That's because maybe you work for this specific program who has this added value and this huge budget.
The long read is what in the old days a long story. Nowadays it's called online a long read. And there's a
long read
fashion word. But there is an audience for it, but it's much smaller than in the old days when you wrote for paper like the Volkskrant. You had 500,000 people reading your story. So those days are over. So you have to. But a small audience is a precious audience still.
So let's finally. To get to the end, let's bring us back to the Netherlands. We discussed it already with the first group of correspondents. When you live abroad, you get fresh eyes with which you look at your home country, and suddenly you start seeing things you'd never seen before. Saskia, I'm curious to learn, what was the thing that you started to see while living far from the Netherlands?
Yeah, I think 2 things. First of all, in Netherlands, efficiency. Time is money. So you grab for lunch just a sandwich as a gas station. And the first time I had to work with a French camera team, they said to me, but we have to take lunch, big bottle of wine. And but I discovered that it was really valuable because you talk about different things. We sometimes invite people as well. So this time is really precious. And the other thing what I discovered is that in Netherlands we talk in money. Even people who have money talk all the time about money. Then friends come back from a holiday and they say, oh, we had such a beautiful meal it was a 3-course meal and it was just 10 euros. And when you talk with French people, they say, oh, I had such a good meal. And then they start completely describing how good it is.
What they had, yeah.
Yes, and look at our advertisements in the Netherlands. It's all the time about the cheap food, how cheap you can buy your food. In France, the advertisement is about the quality of food. And that's very
good. That's a good one.
I learned that.
Saskia, yeah. Tim, what was the thing you started to see?
Well, what I really miss about living in the UK is the politeness of people. I really enjoyed it. And I also realized when I moved there how unpolite I actually was, being born and raised in the Netherlands. We are so direct, you know? And the funny thing is that we in the Netherlands think that is like normality, but we are an exception in the world with our directness and
maybe the Danes.
Yeah.
Are.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Danes,
And to me, it was coming back as well. Like if you travel with public transport, if you just see people jumping in front of you in a queue when you are in a shop, and with public transport, I mean how people complain to people putting their feet on the benches, and it's apparently that's so normal to do, or no one standing up when a pregnant woman comes in, for example. And if you see how normal that is in the UK and how kind people are to one another, I mean...
Yeah, it's an incredible difference. And just to add one myself, I just recently went to Brazil for researching a book there, and I had an appointment with a professor. He was like the professor on this ancient history, 17th century history. And I had an appointment with him at 2, so I thought, okay, that'll be from 2 to 3, I hope 3:30. But then when I arrived, we started talking, and then he took us for dinner. I was like, don't you have to go home? I said, no, we have all the time. Yeah. And then he invited me on Saturday and took me along old forts and fortresses. And I was like, and even on Sunday, he took us for lunch to show us some other. And you know, if here in the Netherlands, if somebody calls you, can I talk to you for something? I book like 1 hour on my agenda, and I realize, gosh, that's so rude.
Yeah.
Olaf, and you?
Yeah, well, what I said, if you have been a correspondent, you for the rest of your life, you are a former correspondent. So you become, in a way, a foreigner in your own country or a stranger in your own country. So there you observe things, you see people, and they take things for granted, which are actually not for granted, but you can see it because you have been in other places. For me, so there were things about before I had been a correspondent, I never had this idea, oh wow, this is too Dutch, I cannot bear it. So for instance, people like Joep van het Hek or Freek de Jonge, so I enjoyed it maybe when I was a teenager, but when I see it now, oh, this is horribly Dutch. There's one thing, the other thing is people in Netherlands, the image is we are open. This is the open. We are honest. We are open, and that I came to pull into doubt. I think so. For the countries where I've written about, people are emotionally more open than in the Netherlands. So when there's a lot of small talk in Netherlands, and which is confused with openness. So, or the thing is, so you or to directness or rudeness, to confuse it with honesty, which is not the same thing.
Good point.
But yeah, I think when I still, because so I still see a lot of people, especially from Romania, because I live there. And you suddenly, in a way, you relax because you don't have to pretend. There is a lot of keep up appearances in Netherlands. Although I have 2 sisters married to a British man who said it's much worse.
But we have to conclude this, but thank you so much, because I love these stories. And I think you had great stories, just like your colleagues before. Thank you so much. It is a party. There are going to be drinks, but not before I hand back the floor to Iman Rashidi. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thanks to the panel for this very honest debate. I'm still curious about what happened with your date, so probably, probably on the drinks, I want to hear that story. But you heard today about the limits and the struggles the foreign correspondents face everywhere, in the Netherlands or abroad. And yet, I think we cannot forget that our work has consequences far outside the borders of the country we work in. What many people abroad think about the Netherlands, about its politics, about its culture, society, etc., they have learned that in a big part through the work of one of my colleagues. So our stories indeed shape the image of our country far beyond the cliches and the stereotypes. I would like to also mention something, because we are in The Hague. So the work of the foreign correspondents here is not only limited to the Netherlands as a country. From here, we report on international justice, on the terrible consequences of wars, on accountability, on decisions that matter to millions of people all over the world. That's why it is important to work on that collaboration, either with the different governments and with the international organizations here in The Hague. So if the next 100 years of the BPV are to mean anything, let them be years of very strong journalism at this time of extremism, of hate, division, and lots of disinformation, unfortunately. So thank you very much. It was very interesting to listen to you all. I think, Britta, please, flowers from the other side. And, well, while we wait for Britta, I will just remind what I mentioned in the beginning, that we will, well, she's here already. That was very fast. For Marcia, please.
Oh,
thank you very much for leading this.
Thank you.
Thank you for leading this hour of debate. It was very nice to have you here. If I may now ask our guests, please, to go outside to enjoy some drinks, to get to know each other, to maybe reflect on what you just heard during the last hour. To the BPV members, the ones who have a table assigned for the meeting, please take your seat, look for your table. You have 10 minutes only to get ready. And now Claudia, she should be somewhere. Hi. We are going to show His Majesty the very beautiful exhibition you have prepared. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.